I have to say I consider it a great honor to have been asked to introduce tonight's Alfred Korzybski Memorial Lecturer and Lecturer, Dr. Terence P. Moran. And I consider it a great privilege to have been one of Professor Moran's many, many students, a number of them here tonight. My relationship as a student of Dr. Moran's dates back to the fall of 1980 when I enrolled in the Media Ecology doctoral program at New York University. At that time, I quickly learned that the program consisted of a triad, a triumvirate, a troika, more accurately, a holy trinity. And depending on your own predilections, you could choose who you'd want to put your faith into as a dissertation advisor. There was Neil Postman, he was the rabbi. The thoroughly Protestant Christine Nystrom was the minister, and Terry was the priest. Terry knew all the Hail Marys you had to perform to complete your degree. He was tough but fair, and he was the best at getting his students to do what they needed to do to finish their doctorate. Of course, the fact that Terry had 4 years of active service in the United States Marine Corps under his belt had more than a little to do with it. He was the drill sergeant who got his students through basic training and prepared them as much as possible for the battleground that we call academia. And whether it was advising or teaching or in his role as program administrator, Terry always brought a highly disciplined approach to all of his activities, both work and play. I should add that Terry is someone who really knows how to have a good time. Really, really knows. Really. So after completing his service in the Marine Corps, Terry enrolled in New York University in 1960. He received his bachelor's degree in 1964, his master's degree in 1965, and his PhD in 1971. And Terry studied with Neil Postman before becoming a colleague of Neil's. And another of Terry's mentors was a communications scholar named George Gordon, who I had the privilege of being a colleague with towards the end of George's career. And George was one of our leading experts on persuasion and propaganda, as well as a talented administrator who went on to found several communication programs at a number of different colleges and universities. So Terry followed George's example as a scholar of language and propaganda and as a gifted administrator, but unlike George, he remained at NYU for the entirety of his career, co-founding the Media Ecology graduate program with Neil Postman in 1970, and serving as program director for their MA and PhD students for over 3 decades. Also in 1985, he was the founding director of their undergraduate program in communication studies. And working closely together with Neil Postman, well, I'm tempted to say that just as Thomas Henry Huxley was called Darwin's bulldog, Terry might be called Postman's bulldog. I don't think Terry would take offense at that, would you? No? At least not to the fact that he was a staunch promoter and defender of the program that they founded together and the kind of approach they pioneered. He was a true warrior. I think Terry might be offended, however, by being likened to the thoroughly British Right Honorable Huxley, because Terry is an Irishman through and through. It should come as no surprise, then, that as executive producer and writer of several video documentaries, he received a 1987 New York area Emmy Award for Outstanding Arts, Cultural, Historical Programming for a film entitled McSorley's New York, which is a history of the oldest continuing operating saloon in Manhattan. Now, I do want to add that he was often known to hang out with some of his fellow Hibernians. We students often refer to them as Terry's Irish Mafia. And In my early years in the program, he was often accompanied by several big burly fellows at the in-house media ecology conferences that were organized for our program. Among them were two brothers, Frank and Malachi McCourt. I think Tom Dunn, you were one of those guys. Tom Dunn is now a vice president at Fordham. So long before these people were famous or big shots. I just remember being a very young graduate student, and I found that bunch more than a little intimidating and frankly scary. My older colleague, Ed Wachtel, once told me about one of the conferences that happened before I joined the program. I think it was at a hotel called the Ponderosa, when Terry's group of fellows went around and proceeded to punch doors off of their hinges. Tom, did you do that? Now, I have to admit this is pure hearsay. Maybe it's fake news. But it's a great story nevertheless. Well, Professor Moran was a faculty member at New York University from September 1st, 1967, until his retirement on August 31st of this year. He is now Professor Emeritus of Media Ecology in NYU's Department of Media, Culture, and Communication at the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. They keep changing the name of that school. He is the co-editor with Neil Postman and Charlie Weingartner of Language in America, which was published back in 1969. He is the co-author with Eugene Segunda of Selling War to America, From the Spanish-American War to the Global War on Terror, which was published in 2007. And he is the author of An Introduction to the History of Communication, Evolutions and Revolutions, published in 2010. He's taught courses and written articles on communication and media, language and meaning, mass persuasion and propaganda for academic and for popular publications. And for 10 years, while Neil Postman was editor of Etc., our General Semantics journal, he served as associate editor. Also, from 1974 through 75, he wrote a regular column in college English on public doublespeak, which is part of his service on the Committee of Public Doublespeak of the National Council of Teachers of English. He's received many awards, including the Good Conduct Medal from the Marine Corps. It was a long time ago. A research award from the New York Society for General Semantics, who I might add is a co-sponsor of tonight's festivities and the weekend symposium. A New York State Communication Association award, the Louis Forsdale Award for Outstanding Educator in the Field of Media Ecology from the Media Ecology Association, and a Distinguished Teaching Award from the Steinhardt School of New York University. His former student, John Patrick Shanley, in dedicating the play Dirty Story, who's Terry's student and friend, longtime friend, provided these words that he would like for his epitaph. He wrote, "This play is dedicated to Professor Terence Patrick Moran, a tremendous enemy of bullshit." Now, I want to confess that Terry gave that to me, and it's a great line. In fact, it's the perfect line to end on, but I can't do that. I have to add that as a teacher, scholar, and colleague, a media ecologist, and a general semanticist, he is a tremendous ally of clarity, precision, and simply put, good thinking. The title of the 65th Alfred Korzybski Memorial Lecture is Politics 2017, Crazy Talk, Stupid Talk, and let us join together now to welcome this year's Korzybski lecturer, Dr. Terence P. Moran.